She wanted closeness. He wanted peace. He flinched at the sound of her key in the lock, then hated himself for it. Not because he didn't want her there. He did. He liked the way her coat always carried the outside air into the hallway, the way she hummed without noticing. But the moment he heard her, something inside him tightened, as if the apartment had just gotten smaller. She stepped in and smiled like she'd been holding it in for the walk up the stairs. "Hi," she said, soft, careful. She watched his face the way people watch water for ripples. He answered with the right warmth, the practiced amount. He kissed her cheek. He asked about her day. He listened. He nodded in the right places. He could do all the parts. That wasn't the issue. The issue was what she wanted behind the parts. She wanted the sense of being met, not just spoken to, not just included. She wanted the feeling that his attention could rest on her without slipping away like a hand off a smooth surface. They sat at the table and ate. The light was low. The cutlery made small sounds that felt louder than they should. She told him about a moment at work that had embarrassed her. She tried to make it funny, but the softness under it showed. He offered a solution before he could stop himself. A simple fix, a way to avoid it next time. She didn't want a fix. She wanted a pause. She wanted him to be with her in the embarrassment for one honest second. She tried again, gently. "It wasn't even that big. It just, I don't know, it stayed with me." He said, "You're overthinking it," and immediately regretted the way it sounded. The room held that sentence. Not like an argument, like a small object placed down too hard. She looked at him. Her eyes didn't accuse. They waited. He felt the familiar pressure rise, her waiting, not for words, for something more costly, a kind of presence he couldn't summon on command. He stood to clear the plates. The movement was quick, efficient. He liked tasks. Tasks didn't ask him to open anything. She stayed seated, her hands folded in her lap, then unfolded. She could feel him turning away without leaving the room. In the kitchen, he rinsed a plate that was already clean. Water ran. He watched it as if it had answers. She heard the water and felt a strange loneliness bloom inside something as ordinary as an evening. When he came back, she said, "Can we just sit for a bit? No phones." It was a simple request. He heard it like an alarm. He sat. He kept his hands still. He looked at her and tried to make his eyes feel like home. He tried. She leaned closer, slowly, testing, like approaching a skittish animal. She put her hand on his knee. He didn't move away. He also didn't move toward. The stillness in him was not cold exactly. It was guarded. It was tired. She felt it and adjusted herself, as if her own wanting had been too loud. "Are you okay?" she asked. He wanted to say yes. He wanted peace, not the kind you post about, the plain kind, the kind where no one needs anything from you for an hour. He said, "I'm just drained." She nodded like she understood. She did understand, in a way. She knew tiredness. She knew needing quiet. But his tiredness always arrived precisely when she reached for him. Over weeks, she learned to measure herself. She learned how to ask without asking too much. She learned what time of day was safer. She learned the look that meant, not now. He learned to anticipate her reaching. He learned to soften his voice preemptively. He learned to offer affection in small, controlled amounts. A shoulder squeeze, a text that said, "Thinking of you." Little tokens to keep the question from forming. Sometimes it worked. They would laugh at something on TV, and for a minute the apartment felt wide again. She would rest her head on his shoulder, and he would let it happen and even like it. But then her body would relax. And in that relaxation, she would believe it meant something was opening. She would turn her face toward him and say something simple. "I missed you today." He would feel a wave of tenderness and immediately a wave of pressure. Because "I missed you" was never only a sentence, it was a doorway. He would kiss her forehead, and it would be sweet, and it would also be a way to end the moment without entering it. "One night," she whispered, "I feel like I'm always trying to find you." He stared at the ceiling, the darkness making his face unreadable even to himself. "I'm here," he said. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, almost to the dark, "You're here the way furniture is here." He turned his head. He wanted to protest. He wanted to say he was trying. He wanted to say he loved her. All of it was true. But what he wanted most was the moment to stop expanding. He wanted it to become simple again. She lay beside him, listening to his breathing. She realized she could predict the rhythm of his peace. It started exactly where her closeness began. In the morning, they would be polite. They would drink coffee. They would talk about plans. They would look like a couple from the outside. And in the quiet between their words, she would keep noticing the same thing again and again. He didn't refuse her. He just kept choosing calm over contact.